left on red. Threw my phone across the room, and I said, "Why, God? Why is it some people sneeze and, oh, I'm pregnant?" And then there are others that struggle, that cry out to you, that want to be mothers. It's not just now in the Bible. Sarah, she struggled and she cried out to him. So about probably a week later, the next morning I did tell him congratulations. I needed my moment. I needed my moment to cry out to God, to cry and just basically, why me? I suffer from infertility due to PCOS. It's now termed, I think, PMOS or something like that. I don't like the new name, but so basically, it gave me a hard time having kids, and we struggled really hard. We wanted to be parents. And we went through all the fertility treatments, with an exception of IVF. I did all the medications and everything that they tell you to do. Oh, if you just get healthier, lose weight, all the things. I did it all. And still, nothing. Every month, nothing. Prayed every day, and I mean, even small group, everything, they were praying for me. I felt like an uphill battle, and meanwhile there were people all around me getting their little miracles, and I wasn't. It was hard. It was really, really hard. And then we made a decision. It was going to be a hard decision. We had a doctor's appointment, and basically my fertility specialist told me, you have one of two choices. We can stop because you've done all the medications. You've done IUI, which is basically the only difference between that and IVF is they don't remove the eggs from me, but I was still inseminated, basically. We can stop, or we can do IVF. That's pretty much where we're at right now. But something inside me told me, let's just hit a reset and start from the beginning. And so I asked her for the medications that started everything, started our journey. And when you take those, it's usually, for it to completely be considered a cycle or a round of it, it's generally 3 months before they determine that something, they give it 3 months before it's either, hey, this isn't working, or it's something happens. And for the first 2 months, nothing. And then that last month, we heard an amazing sermon. It spoke to me. And it was about giving up control. And that's pretty much what I remember about it. And giving God control and trusting in Him, His plan, His timing. I started crying, and I was like, well, when is it my time, my turn? Like I said, meanwhile, everybody is getting pregnant around me. There's this coworker that she had just had a baby. Everything. So I gave it to him. I gave it to God, and I said, let it be your will. If it's meant to be for me to be a mom, naturally, by all intents and purposes, for a baby to grow inside of me and that have said child, because IVF is expensive and it's a really big emotional roller coaster. And it's something that my husband and I, we weren't sure if we could handle it. It's something that we had talked about, and we had said if this wasn't going to work, we were going to seriously consider adoption, because that might be where our journey was going to lead us. So that last month, I didn't do any of the things that they suggested except pray and give it to God. And then the day after Father's Day, something changed. I was at work, and my head cashier, because I was working at Lowe's at the time, made fun of me because I had a pregnant coworker that we were both going to, between the two of us, he had no cashiers because we kept going to the bathroom. And he turned around and he asked me, he said, "Are you pregnant too?" It's like, "That's all I need is another pregnant cashier." I was like, "Ha ha ha ha, you're funny." And then I thought about it. I was like, wait a minute. And Jamie looked at me and she laughed and she was like, "You never know." And so that day after we closed, I found a 24-hour Walmart. It was pre-COVID, so those were still a thing. And I went in there and I got a pregnancy test. I came home and my husband was asleep. And I took the test quietly because I didn't want him to know what I was doing. I took it quietly and I laid it on the floor in front of me. I closed my eyes and I just cried and prayed because I knew this was my last shot. This was it. And after I finished praying, I opened my eyes and I saw 2 pink lines telling me that I was indeed pregnant. So I woke my husband up. I said, "Hey, do you want a Father's Day gift?" He goes, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Here." And I gave him the test and he goes, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Pretty sure by now I know how to take these things. Probably a pro at it, can give classes." And he goes, "Well, why don't you take another one in the morning? Do you have another one? Take it in the morning. And before we get excited, let's see." I said, "Okay." But I'm still gonna go tell him, because my dad was living with us. I'm gonna go tell Poppy. Maybe he'll be a little bit more excited for me. And I went and I told my dad and I showed my dad. I said, "Hey, do you want to be a grandpa again?" And he was like, "Well, yeah." And I was like, "Well, I think you are. I got to take another test in the morning, but I think you're going to be a grandpa again." And he got a little emotional because, like I said, he lived with us. So he'd seen a lot. He'd seen my darkest moments, me crying and wondering and, asking him, why does God make it easy for some and so hard for others? Because he'd been there. My mom and my dad, I'm a fertility treatment baby. My mom suffered from infertility. The difference between me and her, she had several losses, and luckily I had none. But I almost did lose Liam. So my oldest is named Liam, and I was indeed pregnant. And he has been impatient from the day he was still conceived, because it was not an easy pregnancy. But I wanted to be pregnant, and so I dealt with everything. I was high risk. At about 20, a little over 20 weeks, I thought I had a UTI. I wasn't feeling well. and my husband was working overnights. And I told my brother, I was like, hey, because he was living with us too at the time. I said, hey, I think I need you to take me to the ER. I don't feel well. Something's not right. So he took me to the ER, and it turned out that it was not a UTI. It was, in fact, I was having intrauterine contractions. The baby was trying to come. And at that point in time, there would be no survival rate for the baby. And it was devastating because we had tried so hard to get pregnant. We were a little over halfway. To come so close would have destroyed us. Luckily, we had some amazing doctors. In fact, my OBGYN delivered me, so he took it very personal. And we stopped it. The doctors and I worked together with the plan, and I was able to carry almost to term because, again, he was impatient, so he came 4 weeks early. So it wasn't incredibly early, but we had prepared for it. I had to have taken medications after that episode to help mature his lungs sooner. In the event that he did come premature, at least his lungs would have a better shot. So that was my first one. My first and then God moment, because God stepped in. They still don't know why all of a sudden the medications that I'd already taken before worked when nothing else was working before. My second child, my husband was working overnights again. My oldest was asking for a sibling, preferably a sister, but we can't always put in our orders with God, can we? So we went ahead and we did all the things medication wise. We agreed that we weren't going to do everything that we did because we had one. And if it was God's plan for us to just have one, then that's what God's plan was for us. So we did the medications, and like I said, he was working overnights. So timing kind of sucked. When I was working days, he was working nights. Our schedules were not colliding at all. And I remember that I was very disheartened because, again, it wasn't working. And I told my husband, I said, you know what? I said, maybe you're right. Maybe this just isn't meant to be. It's not working. I don't want to take medicine anymore. I said, so this is going to be it. If I'm not pregnant this month, that's it. I'm not going to do it anymore. Yeah. And he said, okay. A coworker that was a friend of, or he's still a friend of mine, his wife, it's always the coworkers, that she had just had a baby, and he was all excited, and he messaged me, and he was like, hey, guess what? He's like, my wife's pregnant again. And I was like, left on red. Threw my phone across the room, and I said, why, God? Why is it some people sneeze and, oh, I'm pregnant? And then there are others that struggle, that cry out to you, that want to be mothers. It's not just now in the Bible. Sarah, she struggled and she cried out to him. And she was eventually given a child. But she And she had her doubts. She got her child, though, even with all her doubts. So about probably a week later, the next morning, I did tell him congratulations. I needed my moment. I needed my moment to cry out to God, to cry, and just basically, why me? Why? Why? I had my 4-year-old crying that he wanted to be a big brother, and he was 5 by the time that we found out we were pregnant again. Because, yeah, about a week later, it was after Mother's Day. I got a bottle of wine that I'd gotten as a Mother's Day gift, and I was like, maybe just in case, before I partake in the wine, let's go ahead and take this. And the whole apartment complex probably thought somebody was being murdered in my apartment, because it was positive almost immediately. And I started screaming. I started screaming for my husband to come to the bathroom, and like I'm losing my mind because I didn't understand how. Just the timing, I was doing the math in my head, and I was like, I don't understand. But we don't always understand.
Yeah.
God's timing isn't our timing. His plan isn't our plan. And he was probably laughing and having a good chuckle. That's how I always picture it. He's just like, ha ha ha, see, told you. You just have to have a little bit of faith. I've got you. That pregnancy, perfect. It was perfect pregnancy. It's another little boy, to my oldest's utter dismay, because he really, really wanted a sister. He cried when he found out he was having a brother. He probably right now has the same opinion, because right now they're at the stage where they're not always getting along. We decided at that point we were done. It took a lot of toll on us, on our marriage, going through fertility treatments. It took a lot of toll on me emotionally, going through fertility treatments, even just taking the medicine. So we decided that that was going to be it. But I also wasn't going to take anything to prevent pregnancy, because why? Why did I need to do that when I had to do so much just to get pregnant? And most women that I've talked to feel this way. Sometimes there's just a part of you that isn't done. And I still had that part of me that just wasn't done. But like I said, I did not want to take medicine again. I don't like the way it makes me feel. I don't like the emotional toll that it takes on me. I have mad respect and understanding for women that go through it.
Mm-hmm.
So they have my love and my respect and my prayers, because I know the pain. But I couldn't do it to myself again. But I said, you know what, God? If it's your plan to give me another one, I'm all for it. I've got plenty of love to give. And that was his plan. A little bit before my 40th birthday, I felt just had all the symptoms. I'm like, I don't feel right. Don't feel right at all. I'm like, I feel off. And the only time I feel like this is when I'm pregnant. That time I'm middle with going to daycare and it's right next to the grocery store. I said, I'm just going to go in. I'm going to go in, grab a test, go to work, and I'm going to take it. Went to work, took it. It's positive. I said, no. We've had false positives before. This has to be another one of those. I'm like, I'm almost 40. My birthday is coming up. I've got a huge party that I'm ready to have. There's no way. So I'm sitting at my desk at work all morning and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go to Walmart and get those cheap, less than $1 tests that everybody swears to get, that even that they use at the hospitals, the emergency room, paramedics use them. That's just foolproof. Okay. Oh yeah. Then things turned positive like in under a minute. Because I didn't do just one. I bought two and I took both of them at the same time. I told you I was a pro at taking these. And I put it all back in the box. I walked to my office and I slammed the door because, and I sat down at my desk. I was like, you have a really, really weird sense of humor. Just talking to God, talking aloud to God. Like I said, people already think I'm crazy, so it's fine. But I put everything, all 3 tests, in the bag. I went home that day and I went to our room and I tossed the bag to my husband. He goes, "What's this?" I was like, "Oh, just open it. It's a really fun surprise." He opens it, he looks at it, and he goes, "Is this a joke?" And I said, "No, because if it was, I would have been laughing all day." And but how? And I was like, "Well, you know, the usual way. I'm sure you remember the birds and the bees talk." And he goes, "But you didn't take any medicine. You haven't been on medicine since before you got pregnant last time." And I said, "I know, it's a funny joke, right?" Went to the doctor and he even said, he goes, "This, we're gonna have to watch you because there's a chance that, you know, you could lose it with everything." And I was scared because there were, you know, the blood work and everything like that comes after. I had to do things that I didn't have to do for the other 2 to maintain my pregnancy. My progesterone was low, so they had to give me progesterone supplements. But my plan was to announce on my birthday. I wasn't going to wait the 12 weeks. I was going to go ahead because my reasoning was, if I lost the baby, I was going to need my prayer warriors. I was going to need my circle, my village. I was going to need prayer because, like I said, I had never knowingly, we suspect I did have a miscarriage, but I had never had a confirmed miscarriage.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't wait to announce. And it turned out to be an easier pregnancy with Leland than it was with my second. 100%. I didn't see the inside of L&D until I checked in to have my C-section. which is crazy. The pregnancy that God gave me was the by far easiest pregnancy that I had. But God shows up when you least expect him to. Every time. And I'm grateful for that.
Mhm. Most women, when they have trouble conceiving, sometimes God, they turn away. Why did you lean in?
I'm not going to say I didn't get angry at God, because I did. But I didn't turn away because miracles happen. He is a miracle worker. And I knew if anyone could give me my heart's desire, it was him.
How did your husband feel about all of this? Because emotionally, you're going down, of course. What about him?
He had his moments. Like I said, when his coworker told him that his wife was pregnant, he called me upset because he wanted to be a dad too. And to see me struggle every month and have to hold me while I was crying was it wore on him as well. It was hard. And I think that's one of the reasons why he also was just like, we're not gonna do this everything a second time, because I don't think he felt he could handle it either.
What was your prayer like during these times? Because emotionally, you're up and down, right? You have hope,
Mm-hmm.
there's encouragement, there's sadness, a little excitement, and there's like this roller coaster up and down. What were your conversations?
When we were going through the cycle, it was just like, Lord, please let this be it. Let this be the one. Let it stick. Let it take. Please, just begging him and crying out to just please. And then when it didn't, it was crying, why me? Why I don't understand. I don't understand why it is that some people don't have to suffer like I do. Why do I have to suffer? What did I do so wrong that I'm being punished? Because it ultimately feels like a punishment. And then you realize you might need to ask for forgiveness, because you know what? It's, he understands, but afterwards it's like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for doubting you. And, I really, I don't understand why I have to wait, why I have to go through this. But it wasn't until I gave it all, because I don't feel like I gave it all to him until I heard that sermon. And I didn't realize I wasn't giving it my all until that sermon. All the prayers, the prayer requests during small group, I wasn't giving it all to him. There was a piece of me that wanted the control when we have we need to trust him and give him control, and he won't let us down.
Okay. What advice would you give those who are going through what you have?
So the advice I would give is don't lose hope. Don't lose faith. It's okay to question, but don't lose hope, don't lose faith, and give it to him. Because whether your journey results in a baby biologically, or his plan is to bring a child into your life through adoption, both can be so rewarding. And his plan is always greater than ours. Always. So if you are struggling with infertility, don't give up hope, but also give it to him. And if at a certain point you're like, you know what? The Lord is speaking to me to take a different path. Don't ignore what he's saying. Don't think you know more, because you don't. He has a plan. I know it hurts. I know it hurts. I can't tell you the countless nights that I cried myself to sleep. But in the end, his plan was greater. And I got 3 beautiful boys out of it. I'm not saying every day is great, but they are a blessing. They are a blessing, and I've known people that went through everything I did, and they came out with a baby from adoption. And they're no less of a mother than I am. My mom used to say something, because my sister is adopted. I grew under her heart. My sister grew in her heart. But she didn't love us any less. So maybe that's your journey. Why Jesus? Okay, so why Jesus? Because he gave it all for us. He laid it all out on the cross. He gave it all for us. He died for us, so that way we could see eternity. He heals the broken, performs miracles, and he doesn't turn anyone away. Even when you think he's not there, he's just waiting for you to ask for him.
Hi. After watching that video, if you feel led to start building a personal relationship with Jesus, join me in what we call the salvation prayer. It's a prayer that basically acknowledges that we are sinners and that we would like Jesus to step into our life and start guiding our steps forward. So, repeat after me. Let's bow our heads for prayer. Lord, I confess that I am a sinner, needing your grace. I believe Jesus died for my sins and rose from the dead. I turn from my ways and ask you to come into my heart and life. Baptize me with your Holy Spirit. I want to trust and follow you as my Lord and Savior. In Jesus' name, amen. Congratulations. If you have any questions on what's next, or you have any biblical questions, or just want some guidance of how to be able to build a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, reach out to us. We would love to help you. Congratulations. See you at Bible study.